with the companion, and Abdullah bin Abbas radiallahu anhu says that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Khamsun bi khamsin," five in exchange of five. So Abdullah bin Abbas said, "Ya Rasulullah, fama khamsun bi khamsin." What is five in exchange of five? Upon this, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam described, "Ma naqadha qawmun al-ahd," that no community is involved in breaking promises and oath except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send upon that community poverty and difficulty. Number two, Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam said that no one who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made responsible to fulfill the orders of Allah, and they are supposed to make decisions according to the orders of Allah Azza wa Jal. And when people will deviate from that category, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will descend upon them such difficulties that they will not be able to go by and fulfill them. And number three, وَمَا نَزَلَ قَوْمٌ فِي فَحْشٍ. A community does not get involved in immorality except that Allah Azza wa Jal sends upon them diseases which cause them death. And number four, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that when people are doing transaction in a way that they are betraying their trust. What does that mean? Number one, a person sells the merchandise with wrong information. And when it comes to the measurements, he tries to take more money and give less. So basically, cheating in transactions. When a person is involved in that, Allah Azza wa Jal lift up barakah from that ground. And number five, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Ma mana'a qawmun az-zakah illa sallat alayhim as-sinin." That no community stops giving zakah that except Allah Azza wa Jal brings upon them a drought, which destroys everybody. So in this narration, we find that Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, he is stopping us from five things in our life. Number one is to betray and to break our trust. When we make a commitment, when we make a covenant, we should go and fulfill that. And this is something that is around the lines of amana and trust. Number two, the Prophet ﷺ said that if a person is involved in making decisions against the orders of Allah Azza wa Jal, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends upon them difficulties and situations and trials. And then the third thing Nabi alayhi salam is warning us is to be staying away from immorality, fahsh. What is immorality? Fahsh is something that is, number one, haram, and number two, not accepted in society when it comes to a sound nature of human being. And this action itself is sufficient to bring the diseases of Allah Azza wa Jal on the face of the earth. And not only any disease. The hadith says at-ta'un. Ta'un is a disease that when it's not only affecting one person, but once it's been sent into a nation, as the Prophet ﷺ said, it destroys everybody in it. It's a contagious disease. It's a pandemic that goes around and it affects everybody. And that is based on the actions of human being. A lot of times where did this disease come from? These diseases are, of course, they are part of the creation of Allah Azza wa Jal. And these decisions that Allah Azza wa Jal sends upon the earth, they're upon the actions of human being. And then transactional, betraying in transactions, doing things that Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't allow. This is why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said on the day of judgment, a person who sells a merchandise by lying, Allah will not look at him on the day of judgment. Allah will not purify him on the day of judgment, and for him there is severe punishment. المنفق الذي الرجل الذي يبيع المال بحلف الكاذب أو كما قال عليه السلام. The person who sells his merchandise with a lie oath. I swear there is nothing wrong with this, but on the other side there is something wrong, and you sell it with that oath, with that qasam. And this is something that is disliked by Allah, disapproved by Allah Azza wa Jal and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And then number 5 was zakah, which is an obligation of every believer. So our main focus is to practice on the things that Nabi alayhi salam has told us, and to stay away from those actions which will cause harm. Remember one thing, of course, this hadith describes an action which is based on a community level. However, the action needs to start with individual. So every individual, he is or she is responsible in fulfilling these orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and following the teachings of His Habib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We ask the Almighty Allah to grant us the understanding and the ability to practice. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Jazakumullahu khairan. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa